Please do.
Good morning, ladies. You're saying this one after, but here we still have a few more minutes. I am just making a couple of announcements for anybody who doesn't know. Irene Whitmer, she did leave rehab last Wednesday, but she just moved right to the next building for assisted living for a while. So I will, if anybody wants to remember, I have it. It's like 150 something. So yeah, she's on short list. And then number two, about agriculture, which is great because I was planning on talking to you guys about it. So last year, this group, when I put a sign out, like one or two people at most, and I'm guessing that's because most of you are part of another group. So anybody who wants to go to agriculture, like does not have a group, let me know. Or if you are going to be going with a group that has not gone before, I am going to do like a sign up for any of the stable leaders. I asked them to like go to signup.com just so we have name and information and easy to communicate with them. Because I actually one of the new women's groups that's meeting once a month on Sunday nights is actually going to be helping me with the this year. And so anyway, if you so know that if you've been a table leader, you're going to be hearing something soon. And if you want to be at a table and have it, it's very easy for me to find you can join Enjoy, which is the Monday morning group. There's all kinds of groups. I'm just saying that has a huge table. I'm sure there's all kinds of groups that would be happy to welcome one or two people. And I actually have some new tables that are small groups of people. So you just let me know. I'm not going to bother doing a sign up. Just email me directly. It's probably the best so I don't keep track of it. Any other announcements that people have before I get into the speaking? Thank you.
Okay, I think I got all my electronics up to date, turned off, and not making noise in my ears anymore. Good morning. Welcome to the start of a new day. Let's pray together. I've got that prayer on your handout, if we would say that together. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, you have called us all to holiness, which means sharing in your divine life. Fill us with a sense of our truth as those called to be your daughters and sons in the world, and their ambassadors to justice and peace. Give us the desire to be worthy of this great calling, the courage to live up to it. We ask this through Christ our Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I have got so many wires and stuff up here. All right, you can hear me, right? Okay. Today, we've got this week and next week, and we'll be finished with this study. And I'm kind of excited because today we're going to be talking about the family. And there's a beautiful section. St. John Paul II was probably the most outspoken about the family and the role of the family in the church and how important the family is as a foundation to society. So we're going to get into some of that here today, and hopefully we'll have some fun along the way. I've saved up some dad jokes on purpose. We'll be good. Okay. Uh-oh. Hold on, just wait one. This one just decided that it is going to be cranky. I feel like a Boy Scout. Be prepared. Or maybe a Girl Scout, because they're always right. Yeah, yes. Okay. So we're going to start off talking about the domestic church. And it says that the lay faithful's duty, notice the word that they're using, duty to society primarily begins in marriage and in the family. This duty can only be fulfilled adequately with a conviction of the unique and irreplaceable value that the family has in the development of society and the church herself. Irreplaceable value that the family has in the development of society and the church herself. John Paul, in this encyclical, this is kind of like the biggest meat of his encyclical, or his apostolic exhortation, it's the right word, about how important the family is. He says that it's irreplaceable and that it sets the tone for the development of all of society. When the family breaks down, society breaks down with it. If the family goes away, society, culture begins to disappear very rapidly. And he says it's not only society, but the church itself, and how important the role of the family is in the church. Everybody thinks it's a big joke when Father Doug gets up front of the church and the children's choir is just going off so loud, especially at 10 and 11:30, right? And his comment at one time was, if the church ain't crying, it's dying. And I agree with that 100%. Some people, it's like, oh, get them out of here, you know. I can't think, I can't hear, or whatever. But if that participation from the earliest age is not there, they will never develop the habit, and the church will begin to implode. It's very critical that we understand not only the church, but society itself, that we have this responsibility to bring children up with this idea of what is society, what is culture, what is the church, and that participation that is supposed to be there. Okay, and everybody understands what the children's choir is, right? Yes. They might not be in tune, but they're loud. It's the duty of the laity to make the family aware of its identity as the primary social nucleus, so that it grows in its proper participation in social life. Primary social nucleus. What's a nucleus? Any physics people here? It's the core. It's where all of the energy comes from. It's the heaviest part of an atom, right? Not atom, but an atom. And we have a duty to make the families aware of this. Our own families, but also other people's families. How important it is to have that core understand how valuable it is. The church, for her part, is deeply convinced of it, knowing well that the path to the future passes through the family. No family participation, no church. The path to the future passes through the family. No family, no society. Or at least not society as we know it. We have to get this idea through. Families have a tendency to be under fire an awful lot lately. And we need that foundation. That means that we have a duty, and the church has a duty, to uplift the family in their dignity within society. St. Gregory the Great looked at that parable that we started off with. Remember back at the very, very beginning about the landowner that was getting ready to bring in the crops, and he went out early in the morning and he hired some laborers to come in, and he says, I'll give you a day's wage, for your work. And then he went out at, a couple hours later, and there was a bunch more people, and he says, oh, come on in, I'll pay you. And then he went out later on and hired some more, and then at the very end of the day, with maybe an hour left, he hired some more, and he paid them all the same. Well, St. Gregory the Great says that this also is a parable about the stages of life and the family. That it goes from the youngest to the oldest. That the laborers that begin the work begin it at different times in their life. And they have different roles. The young or the strong, they can do the whole day's worth of labor. As you go up in time, you're not expected to do as much of that labor, but you're still expected to do it all the way to the end. All are called to work for the coming of the kingdom. And there's variety in that. There's variety in our families. Some are more capable than others. Some are stronger than others. We have kids that are athletes. We have adults that are coaches. We have all of this input into this growth and who they are and how they function. And Gregory the Great says, all of that talent, all of those charisms are necessary, but they're necessary also at whatever stage in life we are. We're still called to work in the vineyard. Youth, the hope of the church. In a great number of countries of the world, the youth represent half of the population and about half of the people of God. Okay? So throughout the world, in a great number of countries, the number of youth is 50% of that population. And of that 50%, right, half of them actually belong to a church. So maybe 25% of the youth overall have some type of a faith identity. Wow. It's not very big. Of course, if you're in East Tennessee, I guess it's okay. This is both an exceptional potential, but it's also a great challenge for the church. Right? I mean, look at how big that mission field is. 75% of people under 21 don't go to church, don't belong to a faith community, don't profess any solid faith in and of themselves. What a potential. But it's also a challenge. How do we reach them? That's a big deal. We can't reach them because most of them can't hear us over this. Right? I was reading an article, I think they called it The Miracle of Alabama or something like that, where they actually told kids they could not bring cell phones to school anymore. And in 1 year, their reading rates went way up, that they were actually learning their mathematics in school because they weren't just buried in social media the whole time. Mississippi as well? Yeah.
And there's social interaction quality. They can sit at lunch and talk to each other.
Correct. Did you hear that? Social interaction as well. That when they're sitting at lunch or whatever, they're actually talking with one another and not just, we call it the death scroll. Have you ever heard that? No. Yeah. You just sit there and you flip your screen. It's the death scroll. What's new? I don't know. What's new? Oh, that looks interesting. We have to get to that point. Our devices are such great tools, but the challenge is to put them in perspective as tools and not a surrogate. That's an important thing. It's a challenge that the church faces, because where are they getting their information? Facebook, Instagram, right? Whatever else they're on, Snapchat. I can't even name them all anymore. But the problem is have you ever been on those sites? Do you see what they're reading? Or what they're getting? If they're getting their information from that, it's biased on both sides. We got to get past that. The church has to figure out how to recapture their youth. Families have to figure out how to recapture their youth. Right? That's a big deal. It's both an opportunity, but it's also a challenge. If you figure it out, let us know. Youth must not simply be considered as an object of pastoral concern for the church. Not just an object of pastoral concern. What's the flip side of that? We have to be, go ahead.
We need to see them as people, not objects, or maybe a better word is persons.
Did you hear that? We need to see them as persons, not objects. We have to understand that even though they might be young, they have dignity. They have a mind. They have emotions. They have great potential. They have so many things the same as us. Just this part of their brain up front isn't fully developed yet, right? But that doesn't mean that they aren't worthy of being addressed as a person, that we know their names, that we give them dignity. A few weeks ago, when I missed, I was up at St. Meinrad for a seminar series about preaching with children and how important this is becoming. St. Meinrad's was given a chunk of money to distribute as grants to increase children's participation in the church, not just in liturgy, but in the church as a whole. The focus, hopefully, will be an increase in participation of the kids. And they want children that have been confirmed to be extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, to be readers, to be leaders of their age group under the direction of the adults, but to see them as having the same dignity as we have as they're learning. Yes?
A good example of that I found, two of my grandkids are in Virginia Beach, and they're serving age. And their church that they are going to has a presentation. The priest presents them with their robe for serving. They come up in street clothes. They're presented with the robe in front of the congregation, and they serve, which elevates their whole
Absolutely.
and role in the church.
So that a program where a couple of your grandkids go to church. Is it your grandkids? They actually, at the beginning of Mass, will present them with their altar serving albs for them to be able to say, you're selected for this Mass, for this liturgy. And it gives them that sense of purpose and that dignity. I think it's an incredible thing. Thank you. That's the type of thing that the church is starting to see, starting to push. It's no longer like, it's better if they're quiet and out of sight, those kind of things. It's more of, let's get them involved. Bring them up to the front of the church. Have them help the sacristans in setting up the altar and cleaning up the sanctuary after Mass. that participation pays huge dividends because they realize their own dignity in the eyes of somebody else. Go ahead, B. Please, yeah, let's start using that. So, I know you got a good voice, but
And I love it when I've been to some churches where when children come up and they're not receiving communion, but the minister or priest, instead of blessing them with a little pie, crouches down to their level and the children praise in this holy place. Yes. They're engaged.
that getting on the level with kids, that was one thing they brought out in that program I was in, is that kids see the world as this huge place because they're so small. And to be able to engage them in their world is an important piece. Go ahead, Debbie.
You know, when we used to, I think it was here, maybe it was there before, but the kids would leave at a certain time to go to their, seek their religious education. And I thought that was really special. Or, or another way, the father would call them up during and give them a special homily too. Or giving them a homily and then sending them off. That's powerful.
It is, because you're addressing them directly. One of the things that they've talked about as well is that they have what they call the Children's Liturgy of the Word, where the kids come in at the beginning of Mass with their parents, and then just before, like after the collect, just before they go into the readings, they are dismissed into a program that's age appropriate for the readings of the day. And then at the offertory, they're brought back in to their parents. Our Hispanic community does that already here in our parish, except that they don't start Mass in the church. As they're coming into church, they team up with their people that are going to be doing their children's liturgy, but then they come back in at the offertory. Did you want to say something, Paul? So if you didn't hear, we don't have a microphone back there, but a couple of weeks ago we were in Dayton for a family funeral, and we went to St. Christopher's Church in Dayton, and at communion time, a mother and her son, who was about middle school age, went up to distribute at communion time. And to see the interaction of a mother and her son together involved brings home this whole idea of family participation. It was absolutely beautiful, and we both sat there saying, yeah, we got some growing to do. Yeah. Children as lectors. If they're a good reader, why aren't they reading? They do well at school when they have a children's mass or a school mass. They do a good job. They could be doing it for us too. Young people are and ought to be encouraged to be active on behalf of the church as leading characters in evangelization and participants in the renewal of society. Wow, we're laying a lot on them. They ought to be active, encouraged to be active on behalf of the church as leading people in evangelization. Hey, have you heard about Jesus and what he did? We had a great session at church today. I didn't see you. Come on in. Kids can do that. And they can get away with it because They aren't all puffed up and worried about hurting somebody's feelings. Right? Well, maybe they are. But the church wants them to be leaders in evangelization and participants in the renewal of society. There's another slide coming up, so I don't want to spoil it. But I want you to think for a second when you look at kids that suddenly become involved in an issue of justice or an issue of peace. They are just so strong in reaching out to that. When they have the March for Life, you know how many kids participate in March for Life in Washington, D.C.? It's an overabundance of young people. St. John Paul II made a connection with the youth, and it pays huge dividends. We can't let that die. We have to get them involved, not just in the church and evangelization, but also in matters of justice and peace, things that will renew society as a whole. Okay? I like to look at this slide and think of all of the old hippies in the world. And they've got kids and grandkids. Are they working in the renewal of society or not? Some of them, no. But we got to get there. Youth is a time of an especially intensive discovery of self and a choice of life. We see that, right? What opportunities are there? Right? You know, sometimes flipping a question is important. So when kids are little, we're always asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Did I ever tell you the story of our son Kevin? I asked him that question. And he says, I want to be a lawyer. Oh, that's awesome. What kind of a lawyer do you want to be? And he says, one that drives a Mercedes. But sometimes we have to flip that question around. Instead of saying, what do you want to be when you grow up, to ask, what does God want you to be when you grow up? Are you living into the vocation that God created you for? But this time of youth is a time of self-discovery. Who am I? Right? And what am I supposed to do? It's a time for growth. Boy, do we all know that, right? Every time they get ready for school in the fall, their pants are 3 inches too short. It's a time for growth, physical, emotional, moral, a time to become. You should be mentored. You should be mentored, heard, and guided in all wisdom, age, and grace before God and men. Whose job is that? The parents, and the grandparents, and the great-grandparents. You know, I was reading this statistic, and I can't remember the exact number, of the number of children that go to church with their grandparents and not their parents. We see it in RCIA. Why are you here? Well, my grandma raised me when I was little and got me to church, and it just kind of fell away after a while, and now I'm here because of that seed that was planted. We all have that responsibility to mentor them. Not just mentor them about, being a better engineer or a better teacher or whatever, of how to get a great job, but mentor them also in wisdom and grace. That's an important job.
after their spouses died. My dad.
Sorry.
I had two grandparents live with us after their spouses died, my dad's dad and my mom's mom. And in observing them, they were very quiet in what they did, but very powerful in what I observed. My grandfather sitting and saying the rosary, my grandmother with the prayers every day, or being on a vacation and had stayed at a motel where my grandma was afraid she left her prayer book and all. We had to stop the car. The power of their faith didn't say anything to us, just observe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just observe. Just observe. What do we do? What do they see? What's important to us becomes, at some point, important to them. You know, all you have to do is think about something like Thanksgiving, right? And you bring a whole set of traditions at Thanksgiving to your family. Some of us eat turkey. Some of us don't. Some of us eat a big roast of beef or something. Some of us eat meat pie. The kids bring fixings. They always do. It's a time to get together with cousins and aunts and uncles. And it's a gathering time. And the kids see that, and they see how we interact with each other and how important those things are in our family. And we might not always see it until they get grown and they get married, and suddenly it becomes important for them too to participate in those family things, those family traditions. I want to get together with our cousin. I want to get together. I want to help cook. I want to bring a side dish or whatever. Suddenly, it rolls forward. But it's something that comes from when they're very little. And the inclusion of their dignity in their households. That's important. They ought to be mentored, heard. Sometimes I don't want to hear my kids. But they need to be heard. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I believe. Are you listening to me? There's a huge sensitivity in young people. They like to wear their emotions on their arms, on their sleeves. They're very sensitive. You say something cross to them, and it sends them into shock. It's true, to a certain point. And then they get really good at hiding it. That's not always good, because then they share with somebody and can't be mentored in a good way. They have a deep perception of the values of justice, nonviolence, and peace. A deep perception of that. Just born into them. That's not right. And therefore, I need to speak up. And sometimes that gets discouraged. But they have that perception of values. Their hearts are disposed to fellowship, friendship, and solidarity. They're looking for people. They're looking for friends. They're looking for someone to sit down and talk to. They want to share their lunches, even though sometimes we say, no, they don't. They just want to be on their phones. But if you take their phones away, they are overly disposed to fellowship and friendships. Think of yourselves. How many of you still remember friends from elementary, high school, or college? Kindergarten, there we go. Right? Those were close friends. People we would spend hours with. Kids are doing that too, one way or another. They might be on Facebook friends, which means they don't sit down in somebody's house that we can see what they're doing. They need to be mentored, but they're already disposed to that friendship. They are greatly moved by causes that relate to the quality of life and the conservation of nature. quality of life and conservation of nature. How would you turn that into participation in the church? Litter pickup. Laudato Si, right? Get them involved in causes of creation and care for creation. What about quality of life?
The homelessness project.
Homelessness, yeah. Make them aware of what that style of life is like and how they can help. Visiting, taking them to a nursing home. You know, we used to do that prior to COVID on a regular basis. I think COVID is now an excuse not to do much of that. But it's safe now, apparently. We can all do it. I remember a time that we took our granddaughter trick-or-treating at NHC back when Pauline worked at NHC. It was a lot of fun. She had a blast. And all of the people are saying, oh, come here, throw candy at them, right? And then send them home. No. But that participation related to quality of life, conservation, or the quality of our environment, those are things kids rally around all the time. And it's important to them. We need to use that to get them more participating in our church. But they're troubled by anxiety, deceptions, anguishes, and fears of the world, as well as by the temptations that come with their state in life. Kids want to move too fast, right? It's never, I'm 3. It's I'm 3.5, right? I want to grow faster. I want to participate faster. I want to be seen as an adult faster. And they're full of anxiety. Am I doing it right? Why am I not getting the notice that I think I should be getting? Why am I not seen with the same level of dignity as somebody else? That puts fears and anxieties into them. People take advantage of that. Here, I'll be your friend. Right? It's not a good place to be finding your friendships. They're troubled. We always call them troubled youth. They've been troubled youth since the dawn of time. They want to grow up fast and be recognized because they want to imitate us. They want to be an adult. We have to figure that out. The church has so much to talk about with youth. We've got a lot of things that they could be doing. Involvement in creation care, involvement in homelessness, in causes of justice, in life, right to life, in dignity of the human person. We've got a lot that we can interest them with. Instead of saying, they're too loud, get them away. The dialogue with youth must take place within a framework of cordiality, clarity, and courage. How many people are scared of kids? You never know what they're going to do. Right? There can be a great fear there of interacting with kids. Especially in our society, the closer that we get to kids, the more flags start going up. Right? Are you a predator? Oh, why are you so interested in working with kids? Why are you there all the time? It's good to be aware, it's good to be looking, but somehow, I went back too far. We have to get past that fear because the church does have so much to offer them. in their growth. We have to be cordial. We have to treat them like people. The laity and the clergy must provide a favorable setting for the meeting and exchange between generations in order for it to be a source of richness and youthfulness for the church and for all of civil society. Go ahead, Susan. It is, but it's also the church's too, because we're the family of God, right? We're the family of all. The laity, us, the clergy, yes, they all have to provide that setting. It's not just one-sided. When our kids were very little, we were still in Michigan, and we went to a downtown parish. Was St. Mary's Star of the Sea in Jackson, Michigan. And at the time there was this very, very old Irish priest there. I mean, he was ancient. He made, some really old people look young. And I remember our kids, when we first started going there, the first thing that happened, kids and infants being what they are, they started crying, carrying on, poking at each other. And he, during his homily, just glared, and he stopped, waiting for the disruption to end. We went to a different church for a number of years after that incident because we did not feel welcome. Our children did not feel welcome. And when you looked at the parish, there was no young people in that parish at all. Even though they had a school, nobody went to church there. Nobody participated as family there. So not only do we have a responsibility as laity, but the clergy has a responsibility too. Sometimes the laity needs to step up and say, you know what? What are you doing? But that should be the first part, is the parishioners talking to him. And then, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't work, then to go up to the next step. I was military for a while, very short while, and if you went outside the chain of command, man, you got slapped down so fast. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes, though, that priest might be the most fantastic fundraiser that there is. He might be able to keep a parish school open, and he doesn't want to make waves.
I believe that all priests have their own gifts, you know.
Absolutely true.
Sometimes that gift might not be what the church needs.
I agree with that statement very much. And yes, that interaction should be there. The interaction should be between all of us, between laity and church, the whole church, on a regular basis. But yeah, that's important. Both the laity and the clergy working together to make it happen. And they have to set this up so that there can be an exchange between the generations.
Sometimes it's hard when you have a family in front of you and you see the children misbehaving.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard sometimes when we are sitting in a pew and the children in front of us are misbehaving and the parents are totally ignoring them. The parents are paying
So everybody heard that, right? So my question is what's the proper time for a kid to come to church? Come on, here. All the time. If they don't, that's right. The parents have to be interactive with them, and if they're not, then maybe what you do is you interact with them. And that might take a little bit of guts, courage, to say, hey, can I help you somehow?
There was a time I was in another church, and there were two teenage boys. It has to have been, junior, senior in high school, and they were carrying on in front of me with each other. And finally, just before communion, I tapped them and I finished. So when we were leaving church, I turned around and I said, "Sorry guys, I didn't mean to interfere, but it's very difficult to pay attention in church. And if somebody's misbehaving in front of us, it's going to be doubly hard to pay attention." So I explained to them why I hadn't. I don't know if that makes, I've never seen it. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I tried to interact positively.
Part of the thing that I would say about if they're teenagers and they're behaving like that is that they hadn't been to church much. They hadn't interacted with other people that mentored them when they were younger. If you're waiting until they're a teenager to bring them to church, they have no clue. They have no clue at all. One of the most beautiful things as a deacon when I'm distributing communion, one of the most beautiful things is to see some child that within the last 2 years has made their first communion. And they come up and they are the most reverent, beautiful little kids. And they receive communion. They understand what communion is. And then they go back to their seats, and brother picks on them, sister picks on them. They get all wound up in that kind of stuff. That's normal. It doesn't mean they should be discouraged. It means that they've got to grow some more. The time to bring kids to church is always. Can we do a liturgy of the word so you can hear the sermon? That's something maybe we need to talk about. Maybe we need to have that conversation within the parish. But they come back to church, and they are there at the offertory, and they're there at communion, and they're there at consecration. And we just have to kind of get over ourselves sometimes and let them be and mentor them with that. Go ahead. Yeah, she says that sometimes she likes the distraction. It's kind of funny to watch them. Yeah, it is. In fact, there's many times Paulina and I will go home and we'll be in the car after Mass and we'll be saying, "Did you see that little guy?" Right? Yeah, we do it. It's part of it. We're a family. You wouldn't put those children in your home in the closet just because they're misbehaving a little bit. You would mentor them a little bit instead, right? Well, why would we send them out of church if we want them to be part of the family? Go ahead.
A week ago, last Sunday, they met in this young family, and they've got a newborn, probably about 4 months old now, and then one that's about 1.5, one's about 2.5. And these folks got their hands full for them. Energetic little boys. But we were cracking up. The oldest one stepped away, and he took his shirt off. And Daddy's holding the middle, Mom was nursing the baby, the newborn, and Daddy's holding the middle child, and then also trying to re-dress the oldest, and possibly keeping him from taking off more. I don't know. Somebody else, another woman, and we were just looking at each other because we were laughing.
When we lived in the rural parish years ago, we went to Mass, and this one little guy was sitting on the kneelers, turned to the back of the church. And in the middle of Mass, he goes, "I don't see you, God." But he was paying attention and looking. People were clapping, but he was thinking.
Yeah. He was thinking about what was going on. 2 real quick stories. My own perspective, this same parish, we ended up going back to St. Mary's Star of the Sea when they got a new pastor. And his name was Father Ben, and he was from Sri Lanka or someplace like that, but he was a great guy. He was a fantastic man. And there was this family that had a lot of little kids. And we were all at Mass, and this family was always in the front row, always in the front row. And this one kid, he must have been about, I don't know, maybe 5, puts on the glasses with the big nose and the mustache, right in the front row, right? And here's poor Father Ben trying to do a homily, and he's looking down, and he's seeing Groucho Marx right in front of him. That was funny. But what he did is he acknowledged it, and he went on, right? But he acknowledged that was there. He didn't try and say, "Don't do that," or stop right where he was and say, "I'm not going to continue until that's out of here," right? That's not good. And, when you're sitting there talking about a kid taking off his shirt, just shortly after I was ordained, there was a family here at All Saints, and this young girl, it was hot, it was summertime, she was probably all of about 3 years old, still big, just big enough that they could stand her up on top of the pew, and she could see what was going on. I'm up there preaching, and I knew the family really well, interacted with the kids all the time, and mom and dad, and all of a sudden she starts taking off her sundress. She's had enough of this. And they're trying, don't do that, and she would have nothing to do with it. She wanted to be cool. It's funny, but at the same time, that's normal. And we don't chew our kids out at home for doing that. Yes, they need to be mentored. This is church and everything else, but there's time as they increase in age and grace and wisdom, right? that they learn how to do stuff. We just got to get over ourselves sometimes and say, this Mass is all about me. It's not. It's about the church. It's a little different. Different perspective. It must be acknowledged that valuable possibilities exist even in life stages of infancy and childhood, both for the building up of the church and for making society more humane. Kids make parents more humane. Do you know that? Absolutely. I sit there and Pauline and I, we've raised 5 kids of our own. We spend time with our grandkids. There's nothing to humble you more than spending time with the little ones. In infancy and early childhood, they are a wrecking ball. They're full of energy. They're loud. They get into everything. If they're quiet, you know you're in trouble, right? But that's the way of life. And the possibilities, how valuable that stage of life is for the transformation of society. We could all stand to be a little bit more humane with each other. Maybe we need to look at each other as childhood friends. Go ahead. Who's the least in heaven? Who leads in heaven? The children lead. I think so too. I do think so. God's got a good sense of humor. I also know that he planned it out well because you're young when you have kids. Right? When they're little, you've got the energy to be with them. But as a church, we have to learn how to be with them too. That's a good insight. Jesus said, let them come. Unless you're like them, you're not going to get in. That means we have to learn how to play in the sandbox. Say what? Get down on the floor? Yeah, sometimes we have to throw ourselves on the floor like the kids and maybe have a little temper tantrum for once in a while, right? But we have to learn to be more humane about how we deal with things. Kids give us that. Children are living members of both the church and the family. As a true and beautiful gift from God, children contribute in their own way to the sanctification of their parents.
And grandparents.
They contribute in their own way to our sanctification. I know my mom and dad are saints. After raising 9 boys and 1 girl, I have no doubt just raising me would have elevated them. We learn from our kids. We learn how to be compassionate. We learn just by the simple act of taping up a scraped knee that there's compassion in the world, that they're loved, that they're understood. We do those things, and it helps us, because then we can see somebody else in need and say, they're a child of God too. Right? They do contribute to our sanctification. When we teach them to pray, when we teach them what the Mass is about, we learn too.
Lots of books about the Mass, pictures in there.
We learn as well. Absolutely. Older people, we'll get off the kids for a while. The gift of wisdom. Older people are often unjustly considered as unproductive, if not directly an insupportable burden. This is our society today. Are we still contributing? I like to think so. I like to think all of us are. But to society as a whole, why don't you just go away? Right? We don't need you anymore. You're past your production years. Kind of like the prodigal son, right? Just give me what's my inheritance and let me go about my business. That's society today. But we're often unjustly considered unproductive. How productive do you think you all are? I think you're very productive. You know, how many people here are retired? I use that word loosely, right? Okay. Are you busy? Oh my gosh. Right? Pauline and I are sitting here. We're going to Hilton Head here in a couple of weeks. And we're sitting there going, oh, God, I can't wait. I need a break. We're doing all of this stuff all the time. Even in our old age, we are productive. Yes?
My sister said, however found any time to work.
Yeah, her sister. How do we ever find time to work? We're just so busy. Yeah, we're just... You know, we're making stuff for the homeless. We're making stuff for infants. We're weaving plastic bags and making sleeping mats. We are involved in study. We're involved in learning. We're involved in our community and working with, maybe the arts or something. we are taking the wisdom of our life and we are still saying, no, we're not going to stop. But society says, what are you doing? You're unproductive. We're not. The church calls, and here we go, and, all caps, expects them to continue to exercise their mission in the apostolic and missionary life. It calls them and it expects them to use that energy that we have to be missionaries. We have wisdom. When I was working as an engineer for many years, there was a company I was working for, and they went through a reduction in force because there wasn't enough work. And everybody they got rid of was over 55. None of the kids, none of the young people, and they made it strictly based on how much money they made, how many weeks of vacation they had, what their pension was going to look like, and everything else. And they quickly found out that they lost all of the wisdom and all of the client contacts and all of the friendships that had built that business were gone. And they began to scramble to hire them back, at which point they'd gone on to somebody that appreciated them. The problem, or not the problem, the issue that I think we got to get in our heads is that we do have wisdom. Wear your gray hair like it's important because, you know, where there's smoke, there's still fire. Right? This is not only a possibility for them, it is their duty even in this time of their life. What is that duty in the eyes of the church? You need to keep evangelizing. You need to keep singing. You need to keep dancing. You need to keep going to Ladies of Charity. You need to do this and that and everything else like you always have, because your wisdom brings so much to the table. Don't stop. The church says don't stop. Why stop? Susan back there, she goes up with the St. Mary's Legacy Clinic and volunteers a couple of days a week helping out with that. A couple days a month. You're still doing it. And when you're not doing it, you're talking about how great it is and the help that they need. Right? It's still our duty, even at this stage in our life, to continue. Do not stop. Evangelize. Bring that younger generation, mentor them, help them to grow. Take them on at the St. Mary's Legacy Clinic. Hey, have you got a little bit of time? Come on up. I need your help. We need some legs. We need some strong arms. We need somebody else to stock our shelves on a ladder because I don't get up there so well anymore. But let me show you the ropes and the people to talk to, and you'd be surprised how many people suddenly say, oh, this is wonderful. Right? That mentoring has to happen. Rich in wisdom and fear of the Lord, the gift of older people is that of being a witness to tradition in the faith, both in the church and in society. They are the teachers of the lessons of life and the workers of charity. What a statement. What a statement. Rich in wisdom and fear of the Lord. We always see that fear of the Lord. What's the first thing we think of? Am I going to sizzle when the water hits me? Right? When that water, that's not the fear of the Lord that we talk about. Fear of the Lord is like a love of a father you don't want to disappoint. Rich in wisdom and love of the Lord, great love. The gift of older people is that of being a witness to tradition. tradition in the faith. How many times do we talk about, even today, you know, I've been at this place and I've seen something and this was really cool, right? I've been to this church, I've been to that church. I've done this, I've done that. I've seen it. That's the tradition we bring. I remember in the old days when we used to have to learn Latin. That's a tradition, right? Both in the church and society. I remember drinking out of a water hose, right? Staying out until the street lights came on. That's our legacy. But we bear witness to that to our children. They don't always believe us, especially, you know, the uphill part of school. But both ways, yeah. Older people, they are the teachers of the lessons of life. Wow. I found it easier sometimes to talk to my mom's mom than to my own parents. And the reason being was that she had the time to sit and talk and share family stories. And she would always make it pertinent. You know, yeah, I know what you're feeling. I know what you're hearing. We have that ability to impress on our children and our grandchildren. They're the workers of charity. Everybody in this room that I look out and I see, you're all busy doing something for charity. Every one of you. We could have our own Catholic Charities meeting right here. Right? We're all doing stuff to make the world better. I'm going to read to you real quick. Page 60. I had to put that note in so I wouldn't forget it. Note to self, yes. At this moment, the growing number of older people in different countries worldwide and the expected retirement of persons from various professions and the workplace provides older people with a new opportunity in the apostolate, being laity in the church. Involved in the task is their determination to overcome the temptation of taking refuge in a nostalgia, in a never-to-return past, or fleeing from the present, or fleeing from present responsibility because of difficult encounters in a world of one novelty after another. They must always have a clear knowledge that one's role in the church and society does not stop at a certain age at all, but at such times know only new ways of application. As the psalmist says, they still bring forth fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green, to show that the Lord is upright. I repeat all that I said during the celebration of the Older People's Jubilee. Arriving at an older age is to be considered a privilege, not simply because not everyone has good fortune to reach this stage of life, but also and above all because this period provides real possibilities for better evaluating the past, for knowing and living more deeply the Paschal mystery, for becoming an example in the church for the whole people of God. Despite the complex nature of the problems you face, a strength that progressively diminishes, the insufficiencies of social organizations, official legislation that comes too late, or the lack of understanding by a self-centered society, you are not to feel yourselves as persons underestimated in the life of the church, or as passive objects in a fast-paced world, but as participants at a time of life which is humanly and spiritually fruitful. You still have a mission to fulfill, a contribution to make. According to the divine plan, each individual human being lives a life of continual growth from the beginning of existence to the moment at which the last breath is taken. Wow. We've got dignity. We're not just old, we've got dignity. Right? You want to know the saddest thing in the world today? Is the number of nursing homes where nobody visits. The family kind of says, I'm done. They don't go anymore. The grandkids don't come around. And it's a lonely couple of years. That's so sad. Because the dignity that's in that room is incredible. The example that's in that room is incredible. Wow, how important that is to us to realize our role in making that go away. Does it hurt? Yeah, every morning it hurts. You know, we were joking ahead of time, you know, it says, everybody's telling me my body's a temple. Well, it ain't a temple anymore, it's a haunted house. And it's full of creaks and moans and groans all the time. And there's a grumpy old spirit that lives inside that just shows himself out every once in a while. Right? It's still a temple. It's still got that dignity. It's important we realize that. You still have a mission to fulfill, a contribution to make according to the divine plan. Each individual human being lives a life of continual growth from the beginning of existence to the moment at which the last breath is taken. We're still growing. You know, when Pauline and I went on a marriage encounter weekend several decades ago. And one of the statements that was there that still comes to me today is this guy says, I hate the word mature. Because when you're mature, it rhymes with manure. When you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rot. That should be our life. To continuously grow, to continuously be green, and not even use that word mature. Because we're still growing. We haven't reached the end yet. We don't know what's in front of us. Okay. Questions, comments? We got an open mic opportunity here. Yes.
I think I found the new mission, or the mission found me. My husband is in a nursing home, and I see him almost every day. And there's a lot of young CNAs that come and go, and they come to me because they see me coming to take care of my husband and shave him and feed him and all of this. And they're asking, like, you know, why do you do this? And I explain, when we got married, it was a covenant. I said, this happened. We had, after I wasn't working anymore, we planned on all this travel. But God has something different. And I says, I'm truly blessed. And they come now as I'm their grandmother, their mother, or they'll say, we were just discussing, what do you think? And they come to me all the time, and when I see something that I don't think they're doing right, or, you know, just their life, like, no, you don't live with your boyfriend. You don't, you know, and they're asking me why. And it's like I come home and I go, geez, Ken is there. I'm supposed to be for Ken, but it's all these I even have male nurses coming in. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't ask for this, it's just happened. Yeah,
But God calls us in all stages of our life.
yeah, and this is,
And that's the stage you're in.
yeah,
To have them come, as you're taking care of your husband, you're giving witness to marriage, you're giving witness to love, you're giving witness to promises and vows, you're giving witness to life and the dignity of life, and that affects people. And there is a whole society that is longing for some meaning. You might, that sounds so cliche, but it is so true that we've come to a world where we isolate ourselves from everything that is not pretty.
you know, and they say, well, don't you feel cheated because you can't do these things? I says, no, I'm very blessed. And I try to explain to them, we're just pilgrims here, and we want to get to heaven. Do you believe in heaven? And they go,
I don't know.
yeah, it's really sad, and they come from all different backgrounds, and some have had some very hard lives, and they, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah.
Yeah. Did everybody hear that little exchange? Sort of. She goes to take care of her husband in the nursing home, and the CNAs that are there wonder why she keeps coming and taking care of him and shaving him and feeding him. And the next thing she knows, these young people are coming and saying, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And trying to get advice from somebody that is older and wiser. And she's got this beautiful opportunity to evangelize. And what an opportunity. God calls us no matter where we're at. And our mission changes. Our gifts are used, and they're used, and they're used. And sometimes when we think that our gift is used up, He just surprises the heck out of us and gives us another gift. And says, now I expect you to learn how to use this one too. Right? When I was first called to the diaconate by Father Chris, I was looking at a life of empty nesting. Our youngest was in late high school. And I'm thinking, we're going to travel, we're going to have so much fun and everything else. And then, boom, out of the blue, that man gave me a call. And I said, oh, now what am I supposed to do? Yeah, it changes, but it never goes away. The responsibility never, ever goes away. What a beautiful story. Because that's what we're called to do. Maybe take some, New Testament books in and leave them on his bedside and see if they disappear. You never know what might happen.
We have the holy water, and I have
There.
the crucifix, and all of this. And sometimes I don't make it over there, and then they go, you weren't here yesterday, and we have this, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Other comments, other thoughts? I will pass the microphone along. She just refused to use it. That's okay. We won't hold it against her. Just a second, Susan. It's on. Pauline will help you. Yep.
My husband was dying, and they had told me with what he had, it was a brain tumor, that he would come to a point where he wouldn't know me. And it came
And that's the difference. He might not know you, but you know him. Yeah. Very beautiful. Yeah. Joanne, pass the mic over this way. Thanks.
One of the things that has been, I don't know, puzzling me is the right word, through all this studying, and I'm about 2 weeks behind ABC and trying to read the actual words, is how we can put into action some of what's being discussed here, especially on some of the things that we talked about today. How we've got a ton of wisdom in this room. How can we use that to support parents? Could we have maybe a monthly meeting and group the parents by either A, the ages of their kids or their own ages, so that they have a safe place to talk about their difficulties, to maybe help them understand that they're not the first to face these challenges with their kids. Through all of this, trying to figure out how we can take all of this energy, experience, and address the problems that we're seeing around us. For example, we've got an enormous space problem here at the church. We just don't have enough place for adult meetings during the week, especially during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no real community forum meeting to say, hey, I was at this parish and we solved the problem that way. I was at that parish, we solved it a different way. To bring forth the richness that we could provide to the wider parish. It's been probably more than 5 years, I would think, because it would have been before COVID. And I think you, Father Michael Woods was here, was the last time that I remember there being a parish-wide, just general discussion of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that probably needs to be done every 5 years, especially when they're putting forth, although the final statement hasn't been made, but the, I don't know, synod, whatever the verb and adjectives are, where we go forth as a community, not just top down.
Okay, so I'm gonna amplify that. Yes, and anybody that is in this room can and ought to say, "Hey, can we get together? Can we talk about this some more? Can we put something in place?" And you don't always need, if there is a desire, we'll find you space.
Who do you
To find space?
No, to whom do you speak? You said we can come together.
Any of you. She just said, she just said, we've got all this wisdom, we've got a space problem. Yeah, but that is a problem, but it's not the biggest problem. We'll find space. It's finding somebody to say, here's a flyer, can you put this in the bulletin? I want a group of people to get together and talk about this or this. That's how things get started. That's how things go. You are empowered. God is not just saying, hey, this is for the clergy to decide, or this is for the nuns to decide, or this is for whatever. We can do this as well, just by standing up and saying, I've got an idea. Can we pursue it? Talk to Carrie, talk to me, talk to somebody, and we will try and accommodate that. Do we need to have more parish meetings? Sure we do. Yeah. People get busy. COVID really knocked us for a loop. And we got to crawl out of that COVID hole and say it's okay. We can actually meet with each other again. So yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, are we ready to sing? Wow, what a day. It was a good day. I think it's a good day. You didn't feel yelled at, did you? No. Good. I didn't set this up ahead of time, so let me see if I can get it. Wow.